Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Estate SEO. My name is Josh Guerra, and today we're going to be talking about how to pick the right domain name for your real estate business, and really how to also ensure that you're picking a domain name that represents the brand, that is also, search engine friendly. And in some cases also, I'm going to show you all how to mitigate some risk when it comes to SEO, but also potentially, infringement risk, which, believe it or not, can happen when you're buying a domain name. So I just want to make sure that you all kind of stay out of the harm's way. So first things that I will always recommend is, like, if your domain name like .com isn't available, like when you just do a generic search like on GoDaddy or something like that, I'm going to show you kind of like some places real quick where you can go to actually search for domain names that may be for sale by the actual owner. And let's take a look at a few real quick here and really just kind of give you guys like some tools that you can utilize. So the very first one that you can actually go to is GoDaddy Auctions. And you can get there by going to auctions.godaddy.com. And when you get to this website, you can actually do a search for domain names. So like for this one, if I was to search for like Sedona Home, you would pull up a ton of different, just a few different options for domain names in that realm. This one right here, SedonaHomes.com. I'm going to be using this one as an example throughout this video. And I'm going to show you some examples of domains that are for sale, but also at the same time that potentially could carry a little bit of risk of infringement. So, at first glance, this domain sounds wonderful, right? And it's listed at a dollar figure that seems pretty reasonable. And for many of you that are out there, like, wow, this is like, if I was to sell one home there, I could pay for this thing 4 or 5 times over, not a big deal. So we'll get to that a little bit more in a moment to see if this is really worth it. The other website you can go to is sedo.com, sedo.com. And just like GoDaddy, it's a domain auctions website where you can find domain names that are for sale. And this website may have some inventory that might not actually be available on GoDaddy or vice versa. So you may want to check both of these websites, just to see if there are options that are out there that you may not be aware of. And of course, what I always like to do is I always like to go to the website and just take a look and see, really see like if it's being utilized, or in some cases, like in this one, there's actually a landing page that'll show you if it's for sale, and it has like a chat. That's pretty cool. So sounds great, right? So now let's take a look at before we dive into like the SEO friendliness, let's look at actually maybe mitigating some risk first. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to go and look for the corporate commissions office, based on the state that you're dealing with. So in this case, it's Arizona. So I would basically go on Google and type in like Arizona LLC search or Arizona trade name search. And then if you click on the first link, and you can enter like the entity name. So in this case, we'll type in Sedona Homes, and we'll hit search. And then if you get to the results, you'll quickly see right here that somebody is operating under this trade name. So, and it's showing an active status. And then they also have an active LLC established with an active status, right? So that tells me, like, somebody's been operating under this name for a while now, and you have a couple of options, right? Like, you could reach out to this person and say, hey, look, like, I noticed that you established this LLC and this trade name. It doesn't really look like it's being utilized. Would you sell it, or would you part ways with it? Or can we do a coexist? That could be an option. Or have an attorney draft a letter if you're serious about it, saying like, we can utilize this domain name and still, operate as a coexist without being an infringement, right? I'm not having infringement on that name. So obviously before you do that, like, just know I'm not an attorney. but consult counsel if you decide to go down that route. Okay. Now, the next thing I would check on a domain like this, let's pretend for a moment that this didn't exist, this LLC, and I wanted to take a look and see, what all is out there. You can go to, or what the history of the domain was. So I would go on archive.org, and archive.org actually is basically a search to see what the history was of a domain name, right? So one thing that I look for when I'm buying domains or helping and coaching like customers, I want to be able to coach them on purchasing the right domain name. I look for history, like previous history on this name, and I look to see if it's clean. I don't want to buy a name that had like an adult website on it, or something that is spammy, right? I want to make sure I'm coaching customers into finding a name that makes a lot of sense and that is a clean name and maybe had some really solid SEO background on it before. Sometimes you'll get lucky. I've seen some incredible domain names get purchased with a lot of history in that regard. So you'll see right here, Sedona Homes, if I click on, you can actually go back in time, and if I click on a few of these, this doesn't really look like much. Just these thinner columns here. Usually it's like, if it's dark black across the board, it's like they've had a lot of history. So in this case, it looks like just like a spinning redirect loop. And let me try another date range. Let me go way back in time and see what this domain looked like. This is the first time I've done it. And again, it redirects to Sedona-real estate. That's interesting. I may want to take a look at that later. So anyways, you kind of get the point, right? And you kind of see like for instance, this one has a ton of history back in the day, right? That's kind of what you want to look for if the trade name or LLC doesn't exist, because sometimes it carries with it some domain authority. I mean, I've heard Google say they don't care about this, but sometimes the data might show a little different, right? So it is nice in that regard. I also like to look at something else, and this is like a backlink profile. So you can actually go into what's called ahrefs.com/backlink checker, and you can plug the domain in and see if there was ever any backlinks that were associated with this domain name. And right now it looks like 0. So as you saw on archive.org, no history, and we've kind of confirmed that to some degree with the backlink checker. And it, obviously there's no history on backlinks there either. So to me, this would be a clean domain to buy, with the exception that, hey, look, you could have some infringement risk, and I would probably steer someone away from this unless they consulted legal counsel. That's just my opinion. You can do what you'd like, right? So that's kind of how I look at things, when acquiring domain names, or like coaching a customer into, potentially, buying one that's from another third party versus going direct through like GoDaddy.com or something like that. I really like to look at these metrics just to see like what the history is, and do we have a clean slate, or are we working with a good foundation? So anyways, I wanted to create this video because I get asked it quite a bit, and I hope you found it informational and helpful. And until next time on another episode of Real Estate SEO, we'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.